a party and I thought it'd be fitting to play a party game. And one of my favourite games when I was a kid was Forehead Detective. And if you don't know what Forehead Detective is, you take a post-it note, you write down the name of a celebrity, you get someone to stick it on your head, and you've got to ask 3 questions and try to figure out who that celebrity is. So I want to play that game. So all you've got to do is think of a celebrity that pops into your head. It can be absolutely anybody you want. You can change your mind as many times as you want. You're going to write this celebrity's name down in block capitals, and then I'll crouch down, you can stick it on my head.
Okay.
Right? So have you got a celebrity in mind?
Yeah.
Do you want to hold the drink for a second? You take this, you
Okay.
take that. I'll look away, you take this, you peel it off. Tell me when I can turn back around. I'll close my eyes so that you can stick it on my head and I don't see through it. And just make sure when you do stick it on my head that you stuck it on high enough up so that the writing's not over my eyes.
Got it.
All right, so go for it. I'll turn around. Take your time. Peel it off.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to close my eyes and turn round.
Okay.
So let's just stick it on my head. Is it staying?
Yes.
Perfect. So just put the cap on the pen. Now obviously you had a free choice to go for whoever it is that you wanted. You just close your eyes for a second. Did you see the name? Mm-hmm. So just imagine sending it right from your head right into my head. And you do the exact same. You imagine sending it into my head as well. Open your eyes. You don't have to close them because maybe I'm doing something funny here.
Okay.
Again, one more time. You just imagine sending it to me. And you imagine sending it to me. And then slowly open your eyes. So I'm going to ask 3 questions. But instead of answering out loud, you answer in your heads and you answer collectively, right? Is this person, don't answer out loud, an actor? So I think that's a resounding no. Both of you thought no. Again, don't answer out loud. Is this person a female? You both thought yes. Last question. And don't answer out loud, just again in your heads. Would I definitely know this person? You nodded there very slightly. You give that away. That's a yes. I'm going to go with this. So this would be somebody that's in music, somebody that's fairly well known, probably not modern because it's easier to go for somebody that's more of a classic sort of person that everybody would know. I think you probably went for this person because you didn't think that I'd guess this person. Female, singer, everybody would know. Probably, my inclination is telling me, and it's not this, my inclination is telling me that this is probably Beyonce, but I'm going to go with Madonna.
No! How?
Oh, it is, there we go, Madonna.
No!
It's cool, right? And there it is. Thank you for playing. So now we're going to look at the explanation for the shiner. Now again, this is a prototype. This is what a shiner is. It's essentially a mirror. I will talk about, if you forget this, how you can still do it using impromptu devices in a real world setting to be able to get the same peaks. But essentially the routine that I perform with this were a routine called Forehead Detective. Now in America, Forehead Detective is a big party game. We play it in England. It's not called Forehead Detective in England. It's just guess the celebrity. So the idea is that everybody in the room would take a post-it note, they write down the name of a celebrity, and then they stick it on their head and they have to guess the name of the celebrity, right? So the way that we work this out, and it would, whilst jamming with Fraser Parker actually, that we came up with this routine, the shiner would be hidden under a billet like this. So you could take a stack of these. The beauty of having a shiner at a certain position is because it's slightly thicker than the rest of the cards, if you're holding it like this, and you're gesturing, nobody can see it. So the beauty of it is that if you're ever going to cut, you're going to cut straight to the shiner, bringing it to the top. Which means that if somebody's wrote the name of a celebrity in black marker pen on a post-it note and stuck it on your head, and you turn the person, you say, right, just think about who it is that you wrote on my head. Now by looking down, I go, just think about who, and as I go like this, think about who you wrote and placed onto my head. I'm getting that look straight at my forehead under the guise of doing this. Right? That's the basic essence of how to use a shiner. This is the perfect, because my hand's here, you can't see this, right? All you see is white cards. I'm holding this like this. I know it's in a good position. It's a huge square. And I'm literally just going, now think about who it is that you wrote and placed onto my head. And as I'm doing this, I'm gesturing wrote and placed on my head. I'm bringing this into my natural line of sight. I'll discuss that more in a moment. But what the shiner allows you to do is just get a peek at that. And now you can play that game Forehead Detective and you'll be able to guess every single time who it is that they put on your head. When we get into additional ideas, I will talk about how to use the one ahead in conjunction with this routine, but that's going to come later in this set. There's other uses for this that are really simple. Another simple use is to have the shiner like this, get them to write something down. So they write it here, and as you take this, you go, in fact, you know what? Keep hold of that. So what I'm doing is, as I bring my hand up to put it down onto this, I'm literally looking at what they've written here, and you can see, you get a good view of that. This comes in like this, and there it is, right? So that's essentially what a shiner is. It reflects information so that you can see it. You could place this on your lap. So if you've got this on your lap, you've got a good view of what the table is. So if the person sat here or over there, what you're going to do is have them select something. They're going to be sat here. You say, right, I want you to take this. And as you look down to look where to grab it, I'm literally looking down at my lap and I can see what that is. You're going to place it in your hand and put your hand on top of it. And that's going to allow me to get a natural peek of this from there upwards, right? Nice and simple, easy. Let's look at alternatives to this, alternative routines, and also impromptu shiners. So we'll take a look at that now. So I know I described very quickly what the shiner is and what it does, and it seems like I sort of glossed over it a little bit, but I've not. It literally is what it sounds like. It's just a reflective surface that allows you to peek a piece of information. There's not really much more that could be said about it other than how to use it, where you can get alternatives, impromptu shiners that can be used in real world situations, and also what this can be used for outside of the way we used it with the forehead detective. You can order what they call dental mirrors off of Amazon. They're cheap. This is a very good shiner. You don't need to. But if you wanted a smaller one, a more compact one, you can do that. You could take a compact mirror. If you've got somebody that uses makeup in the house, you can literally take the glue off the back of the one in a compact mirror and use that. I like this one because it fits in with a stack of billets. Equally, I like ones that are the size of a coin. The ones that are the size of a coin are a little bit more nuanced to use because you have to get used to exactly where the angle is, and you wouldn't be able to necessarily go look at what were written. In that environment, you'd have to say, imagine this is transmitting from my head into yours, or imagine transmitting from your head into mine if it's the opposite way around. And as you're doing this, you're bringing this hand into your line of sight. So what line of sight means is this, is there's nothing worse than having a shiner here, like down on your lap, and the card's over there and going, right, just think about what you wrote. There's nothing worse than that. So what you want is, you want to take their piece of card, keeping it face down. This is on your lap. When you bring this to here and you do this to pick it up, to pass it to them, it makes sense to be at fingertips and slow. I'm not going to look where you're taking it off the table, which is now giving you the look to put across here. My line of sight is naturally drawn to here because I have to take it off the table. Right? And line of sight is such an important thing when you're either peeking a billet or peeking a piece of information. Never put the shiner somewhere that the action's not taking place. So what I won't do is I won't go, and now look, like I'm looking up there, it's obvious I'm doing something. Make a natural motivation in performance to bring that shiner into play, right? So you're moving your line of sight to that. If you know that your shiner's hidden over here, and it wouldn't be, I'm just saying, let's say it was hidden over here, then you'd have to find a way to move the performance over there. And that might be that you say to somebody, right, I want you just to come round here for me for a second. Now look, you went for this. I'm going to keep it hidden. Can you see that there? You can see that, right? Yes. And now that's naturally motivating the movement from here round there, right? You're moving the moment that you're looking at this into a natural moment that takes place. That's what line of sight is. Now, let's say that you've not got this, you've not purchased a compact mirror. What you could do is, one of my favourites, and this is only ever being published on this set, nobody's really talked about it before, I don't think anybody's ever done it before. Go on YouTube and have a look at polishing discs. And what you can do is, you can learn how to polish old bits of metal to polish them up. So I take a 50p coin, I get someone to run it on a belt sander. Now, if you're not adept with tools, you're under the age of 18, we hold no responsibility for you doing this. If you get hurt, we still hold no responsibility. The way that I do is I take a 50p coin, I put it on the table, I take a hot glue gun and I take a piece of metal, hot glue gun, stick my piece of metal to it, and I run it on a belt sander till it runs one side of the coin off. And now I follow the instructions on how to buff, compound and polish this, and one side of the coin now becomes a mirror. Which is great because it means I could do a witch hand routine with a 50p piece. When I take that 50p piece back, I false transfer, and if you're not a magician, a false transfer just means you're retaining one coin, pretending to pass it across and they think it's this, and now my coin is my shiner. right? And I use the coin that's just been used in this performance as the shiner. So that's if you know how to use a belt sander, and the hot glue will just pop off. If you've ever used hot glue, you'll know that. But just look up videos on that. It's a great little subtlety. I don't think anybody else has ever done it. I've done it for years like that, just because I like having an impromptu shiner that can just literally sit there. When I take that 50p and you're seeing the head side of it and I place it down for a second, not one person's ever assuming that this is a shiner, so I can use it for whatever I want. This is also good because it can be placed in a wallet. So if it does go into a wallet, you'll notice that this has been sized perfectly to fit right down in where the credit cards fit. So let's say I take the bank cards out. This will sit right down in there and it'll sit flush. Wait a second, there we go. So that means that when something comes into the wallet, it can be placed here, and as you're closing the wallet, you can get a look at what it is. You can literally place the thing on top of it if you wanted to. If you want to put this in the money section, it fits again just nice and perfectly. You see, you can't see that over the top. It fits so perfectly that as you take their piece of card face down and you slot it in there, you're just looking down at it. You're looking down at exactly where it is as it goes in, and you know where it is. These are just alternative uses for placing this. So now let's say that you've forgotten your shiner. For whatever reason, you don't have your shiner with you and you need to use a device in the heat of the moment to catch what this is. Well, the best natural shiner on the market is a mobile phone screen, right? If you polish a mobile phone screen, place it down, as soon as I got to give you this bit of card, I can now see whatever's going to be written there. So let's, for example, say that I took a card out at random and I did this, and I'm showing you, I know it's the Ace of Hearts. So it is. So if you turn that, I don't know if you can see that, but in the phone screen, I don't know the angle, you'll have to move it and adjust it, but you'll be able to see it when you go to pass it across. It literally acts as a natural shiner. So if you've just got your phone and your keys on the table and you say, right, just touch a card, and they go, that one, and you go, right, have a look at that. It's the Three of Hearts. I know it's the Three of Hearts because it goes, take it, have a look at it, and I'm using this as the natural shiner. Let's say that you're in a restaurant, and you don't have a chance to use your mobile phone because you think it's a bit suspicious. One thing that you could do when you've not got a serrated edged knife, you can get them to polish it, and you say, right, I want you to take that and just insert it into the pack somewhere at random. So they've inserted it into the pack. Now the moment that you pick this up, the indice of the card reflects off the knife, and you say, right, just look at the card you cut to. Right, boom. And now you've got an impromptu shiner using the cutlery on the table. So there's 1,000,001 ways that you can use shiners. You know, I've been in situations where I'm literally sat and the glass is so reflected behind somebody that I can use that. The television screen in a room, I've had people write things down. There are other methods, like I'll show you a really nice one. Just make sure there's nothing behind you there. So have a look behind you. There's no reflective surfaces or mirrors. Take this, and you're going to hold it like this toward yourself, right? So you're going to hold it landscape, and I'm going to ask you to make a nice large drawing that we'd instantly be able to recognize. A simple thing like a stick man, right? So you take that, fill the entire piece of card. So you take it, hold it toward yourself so I can't see over it. Go for it. Right, so tell me when you're done.
Done.
Put the cap on the pen, don't let me see it. Show everybody at home, I'll cover my eyes. Show everybody at home what this is. And of course, this is a pentagram or a star, a pentacle, and I don't need to peek. I just know it, right? So that's another alternative technique that you can use. It should be. Yeah, there we go. But just to show you how this works, again, this is a combination of a couple of different techniques. Take this, draw another doodle like that, but something that's a bit more, you know, like an actual stickman or a flower or something like that. Nice and large though. Tell me when you're done.
Done.
Right. Okay. So in this scenario, it were quick, right? So what I do is I'd be able to start drawing what I think I'm seeing. So I'm seeing like a triangle at the top. That sort of makes sense, and a curve, and there's like a little line here. Now this is never perfect. I'll tell you what, take that off and place it face down there for me. Place it face down. I want you to think of a name here. So imagine that there's a name written there, but the letters are really nice and large. So you're going to fill up the entire card. You take that, the first male name that pops into your head, and really largely, so the letters are huge. Write it. Tell me when you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, so now again, this technique's nowhere near perfect. Is this like Josh, something like that? Oh, Joseph, there we go. That's close enough for me, right? So what I'm saying is even that's close enough in the real world when you've just met somebody. And again, this were a lot longer than I anticipated. I stopped looking away when I got J or S, but I still heard the pen go in, so I went for Joshua, right? This I'd probably waged like a house. Yeah, I'd have gone for a house. I just saw it curl at the bottom, so I was like, oh, Not going to take 100% of a guess. But what this is pen reading and sound reading. And I'm, once I'd heard J-O-S, and it was Joseph, by the way, so that's why I went for Joshua, because I saw J, and then I stopped paying attention, right? But that'd get me close enough. What I'm doing there is I'm watching, by holding it like this and having them hold it up, by putting the cap on the back of the pen like this, you've literally got the full black cap to follow, and you follow the elbow on the top of the pen and listen to the sound. Like, for example, with ESP symbols, you know the ESP symbols, the square, the circle, the plus, the star, the wavy lines.
Yeah.
Right, so tell me which one, close your eyes.
Okay.
Tell me which one I've drawn. Let's take a guess.
Circle.
Have a look. Right, let's go again, close your eyes.
Okay.
I'll do another one. So there is a circle, a plus, a waves, a star, and a square.
Square.
Open your eyes. It's a lot easier than it looks, right? And with ESP symbols, it's super simple. So you sometimes don't even need to use a peak. You can use the sound of the pen. You can use the motion of the elbow. That's called sound reading. It's also called pen reading. And it's a technique that's a dying art form. Nobody does it. I can do this from one side of a room to another, right? Give somebody a clipboard and give them a thick marker pen and tell them to make a large drawing, and the motion's even bigger. For a pentagram, you'll see this. It's like, to me, this is a better technique than any electronic device you're going to get, any peak device, because you literally take your clipboard and draw what they've drawn. Or you take your pen and draw what they've drawn, right? So this will give you a moment where there's nothing around to know what somebody's drawn, and just by using that technique, just listen to it, watch it. Simple symbols like ESP symbols are perfect. Numbers are great for this. If you ask somebody to write a 2-digit number on a piece of card and you're watching the pen, so if you watch the pen, you might not be perfect at it first time, but we'll try.
31.
It's a lot easier than it looks, right? And if they're doing something more, if it's a name, look away after they've done 2 or 3 letters. It's always going to get you in the ballpark, right? If I said to you that it were a male name and I put P-E-T and then you look away, you could be pretty sure at that point it's probably going to be Pete or Peter. You know, if you saw it were a female name and it were S-T-A-C, you're pretty sure it's going to be Stacy, right? Like, the only times there's nuances like Joseph, Joshua, which is very rare, right? It's just a rare occurrence, but you're going to get yourself most of the way there. Here's the out, just in case you completely miss it, right? This is the out. Take this. I'll get rid of that. You're going to write down a random 4-digit number, a PIN code, okay, right? And I'm going to put my fingers in my ears and look away, so just tell me when you've done that. Da, 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 da. Nice and quick. It doesn't matter when you've done it. Place it face down there. You done?
Yes.
Perfect. Now pick it up again. I want you to draw one of the ESP symbols, right? Nice and largely on there. So exactly the same, just a nice large symbol. Go for it. So tell me when you're done. I won't look.
Done.
Place that face down there.
Okay.
Right, so put it. Ready? Pass me the rest. Let's have a go at this. Obviously, you saw me, my fingers in my ears, you saw me looking away, and you saw me humming. So there's no way I could have heard it. There's no way I could have seen it. Focus on the name for me. So just in your head, imagine saying what that name is. Now, what's interesting is you thought of one name and then changed your mind. This is about 4 or 5 letters long. Mm-hmm. Right, okay, perfect. I think this is the, I think that's the name. What's the name?
I don't remember.
Do you want to have a look? Just double check.
Okay. That wasn't a name.
Okay, what did you write?
A number.
Let's have a look. It's all right. It's a good job I wrote a number as well. No, I'm joking. Keep it there for a second. Okay. Don't let me see what this one is.
Okay.
Right, drop that down. What's interesting though is you could have wrote a name. You really could have. If you had have, can you think about what name it is that you'd have wrote? Don't say it, but just think about it.
Okay.
Okay. This is an interesting. You can abbreviate this name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I brought the abbreviation. What were the name? Just because it's not written down.
John.
Okay. This is the hardest one because with you, I think you're an analytical thinker. This is more of a creative drawing. Do you remember what it is that you put down there?
I do.
Okay, so just imagine that in your head. Okay. Did you change your mind on this symbol at the beginning? You originally go for the star and then thought, oh, I drew that earlier, so I'm not going to. Can I see what it is you went for? Oh, so the waves, yeah, that's what I went for, waves. right? The bit that blows my mind is, yeah, I knew you were going to go for the number 363, and that's why I went for that. And also I went for John, and that's 3 for 3. And that's how you save yourself in a situation like that on the fly. So sometimes you're not going to get your peak, right? You're not going to get your piece of information. I didn't know that it was 363. I didn't know it wasn't a name because I was looking away and I was humming. But what I did when it came to the waves, I waited till I saw you make the first action and I saw this. And that's undeniably a wave. So I turned around. I won't look, I'll talk. So now I'm one ahead, right? It didn't matter to me that you'd not gone for a name there, because I can just add the name into the mix during the one ahead. So if you don't know what the one ahead is, it's incredibly simple. I won't go over it. It won't take me hours to go over. But because Stacey had drawn a number first, which I didn't know, I assumed it were a name because I had my fingers in my ears and I looked that way. This got placed down. Now I turn it around and say, take these, and I position your hand into the perfect position for me to pen read. And now I say to you, right, now draw one of the symbols. If I'd have seen this, I'd have known it were going to be the star. If I'd have seen this, I'd have known it were going to be the square. If I'd have seen this, I'd have known it was the circle. If I'd have seen one line go down, and I'd have turned and just put my fingers in my ears. And I go, just let me know when you're done. So your image is this, and you look up and I'm like this, right? So now, wait a minute, you haven't seen either of these. But the symbol's so simple to do, it give me the wave, right? Now I tell you to focus on this. And the beauty is that when I asked you, I said, this name's like 4 or 5 letters long. You went, yep. So I knew somewhere in there was a name, you just not wrote it, but that's fine. So I write it down and I go, I went for a number, have a look, right? And then I go, in fact, wait a minute. Let's try to go for the name that you've not wrote, that you've just thought of. Now, in the heat of performance, I'd saved myself like that. I knew I didn't get this, so I needed to one ahead from this. So what I did is focus on this. I draw a wave, I put it down. Let's see what it is that you put, 363. Now I pick the next card up, my blank one, and I go, right, focus on whatever symbol you drew. But in this case, there were a name involved as well, so I just wrote 363 and said, what were the name? It's not written down, tell us it. So you said John, so now I pick the last one up and I go, this is the hardest one of all, this is the symbol. You're an analytical thinker, so this is going to be difficult. And now I write John down, I place that down. What is it you went for? Waves, and I turn them over. And now I've managed to get a 3 for 3 performance with a mind shiner just by looking at this, right? It's a nice, simple, quick way to quickly save yourself on your feet, but you can see how the one ahead is one of the greatest tools in the entire mentalist arsenal, because it allows you to do things like that. And if the spectators, which I know they've not ever heard of a one ahead, that's a miracle. So this is for the pro mentalist. Sometimes the happy accidents are the best moments in performance. So what happens is a spectator might say something or do something that gives you an idea where you think, and this happened in this performance. I'd purposefully try to make this happen again. So what I'd do is, I'd make out now, like there were a name in there, and I say, okay, you've got a name inside your head, focus on what that is. So you'd go, yes, and I'd write down what the waves, and I'd put it down. And I'd say, now, I had you write down the name, and I had you write down the number and draw the symbol, but you didn't write down the name. No. Okay, well, I've done the number, and obviously I've done the waves, and I'd make out like the name's important as well, but it's the only piece that's not drawn. Does that make sense? So now you're still nailing something that's not been written down, which is a method cancellation. This little bit cancels that because you're going, well, wait a minute, it can't peeked it or looked at it because they didn't write that name down. So it just cancels it out. So happy accidents are a great thing to implement into your own performances. Anyway, I digress. I'm talking. So yeah, that's the shiner. It's very easy. Use it to reflect any piece of information. You've got your backup with the one ahead, which I will go into more depth on later on. You've got your backup with your pen reading and your sound reading. ESP symbols are incredibly easy to do. Using a clipboard and a pen makes it even easier. And that's not really much more to say on shiners. It's just a simple archaic tool that needs to be brought back because they're incredible. So let's jump into the next section. So now I want to talk about billets. You'll also find a stack of billets inside the box. I did say earlier on this project that these are my favorite kind of billets. That's not an exaggeration or a lie. They really are. That's why they're inside the box. The thickness of these is perfect. And again, I'm not here to shill Illusionist products. I don't work for Illusionist. I gain nothing from telling you that these are my favorite if they're not. If you saw me at a convention, if I don't have these, it's probably because I borrowed them or I found a business card somewhere else. But these I really do like. So what are billets? Billets are just stacks of cards, and actually it comes from, I think it's a French term, it's train tickets. Any small square of paper is classed as a billet, but these are my favourites. I'm going to perform for you something, I'm not going to explain it as it's being performed because I don't have permission to explain it, but I do have permission to perform it. And I'll tell you then what it is. This is my version of it. It's my absolute favourite version of any kind of billet work, and I hope you really love it. And I implore you to reach out to the man who did the very first variant of it, because you'll be able to get the technique and then work out what I've added to it from them. For now, Stacey, I just want you to sign your name across there for me, all the way across the top of the line. There we go, perfect. I want you to think of the name of somebody that you don't think that I could just instantly guess. I don't want you to go for a ridiculously long name. At the same time, I don't want you to go for a ridiculously short name, but a name of somebody that means something to you.
Okay.
So let's say that you were thinking of Chris. You're going to write it down nice and neat like this so that it's readable. You're going to write it just here. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to do this and then tell everybody it says Chris, because we can't read it. So you're going to write it down there, block capitals, and then you're going to fold it so that your signature's on the outside. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you take that. Now I'm going to look this way. And the only reason I'm looking this way is because there is a monitor that's filming this, and I don't want you thinking that I'm using pen reading, sound reading that we discussed earlier. Fold it so your signature's on the outside. Are you done?
I'm done, yeah.
Two things are important. Firstly, I'm going to do this absolute fingertips. Because you're the eyes of everybody here, you can see your signature there. You can see that. Just have a look. You can't see in that.
Correct.
Take it off me. Hold it up to the light. Fold it again and then hold on to it like this. I'll never look round until you tell me that
Okay, you're good.
Happy?
Yeah.
So you can drop your hand.
Okay.
So think about the person's name. Don't let me know what this person's called. But first I'm going to try to work out, is this a person? That's the first question I'm going to ask, right? Because I'm feeling really weirdly, the way you're sort of thinking about this name, would this be more a nickname as opposed to an actual name, or is it someone's actual name?
Nickname.
Okay. Because at first I was thinking to myself, this is the sort of name that to me it's not as straightforward as just like Scott or Chris or John. Yeah. It seems like a bit more of an interesting name, almost a name that you've picked because this person does mean something to you. But I think you picked this name because you also felt it were a slightly challenging name for me to get. Would I be right in saying this is really weird and it's not going to make sense to anybody else? This name is a female name that I'm getting. But weirdly inside here, in the past, I don't know if you've done this just because this is a friend or because you were doodling it. Have you put a love art above one of the letters before, like the I that's in there before in the past? Because I'm almost seeing like a little dash or a line. So there is an I in there as well. And there's two people I'm seeing. Could you think of what this person's star sign is? You might not know it, but just think about this person's characteristics and then attribute a star sign to them. Yeah?
Okay.
Now I have to work out how you think about certain letters. So imagine this star sign written as a word. Don't worry about the name, the star sign. Yeah? Think of the amount of letters in this star sign. See it like Leo really largely. Is that what you're thinking of? Yeah, now I think I'm in tune with how you think. I'm going to write this down. I might be wrong here, but the way that I perceive you thinking about letters is this. Can you open this and let's have a look?
Yeah.
Mini.
Mini, yeah.
And look what I went for. Mini. There it is. It's great. So there's a couple of things there. Can't explain this because the technique's very similar to a technique created by Richard Bush. This is my version, my handling, my technique, and subtleties surrounding that effect. For me, it's the greatest billet peak. I mean, I'm facing this way. You take it, you hold it up, you check it, you fold it. I never touch it, and I know where it is. You didn't see the peak?
Oh, it's so clean.
Yeah,
no.
it's
nothing.
So it's a really nice version of it. Again, when I'm working close up, that's the peak that I use. I do it surrounded. There could be people behind me from every angle. I'm literally just take it, have a look. You hold it up. I don't want to touch it. There it is. And then there is this. We will talk about billet peaks. I'm not just showing you a billet peak and saying this is this. I'm going to show you billet peaks, just not that one. But it just shows you what you can work towards. And if you check out Peak Encores by Richard Bush, I highly recommend Peak Performances, Peak Encores. I'm so proud to be able to call Richard Bush a friend. Richard knows that I perform this all the time and I just direct people to him because I'd rather you get it from the source, learn the technique, come back and watch my performance and you'll see all the little added touches and details. It's just a glorious peak, right? Then we move into the star sign element, right? So the star sign element is an interesting one. There's a series of techniques there. Everybody's going to think that you're in on that. 100% wasn't?
No.
Right. But that's me gauging, using actual psychology about how long somebody takes to think about something, using what they call the comparative uncertainty principle, or CUPS, which is a design by Michael Murray, then using my own, which I didn't have to go into, anagram. But let me show you what this would look like if it were different. Can you think of another star sign to attribute to Minnie that's not Leo?
Yeah.
Now imagine writing that out as a word, and in your head you mix the letters up in any order you want. So don't just go for it as it's sequentially. You mix. There's an R in there, right? Mm-hmm. And an A as well, yeah. No, look at me. Just keep saying it like Virgo. Keep saying it, right? So now I instantly can tell you what it is using an anagram. You can take this a step further. Do you know somebody's star sign and actual date of birth that I wouldn't know?
I don't know star signs. I can look one up like real quick, or
you can if you want. Where's your phone? Is it? Oh, it's going to be over there, isn't it?
No, it's right here.
But let Stacey step off. You can see that this is totally not prepared. Stacey's just doing this off the top of her head. I'm not going to be sharing the technique to get to the date of birth, but I'm going to be showing you how you can get close to that, because I am going to share with you the anagram. If you want to check out this technique that I'm about to share, I'd highly recommend finding a copy of Isabella's Star 3, because it will detail how to do this. Do you have one?
Yes.
And it's different to one of the ones that were already named.
Yes.
All right, so imagine the letters floating in the air for me. Now in your head, you mix those letters up. Now in the day, not the month, not the year, the day, is there 1 or 2 digits?
1.
Okay, perfect. So just so I have something to aim for, imagine the star sign written as a word, and think of the amount of letters in the star sign's name. Okay, this is there's an R in this one, and an A as well this time.
Yeah.
There's not an I in there, is there? Yeah, and an S. No, look at me, and an E. Is Aries?
Yeah.
Yeah, good, okay. Interestingly, this is the bit that'll blow your mind, right? Like, I'm still down to a 50-50 on the month, right? But I can 100% tell you that this person was born in April. Imagine that single digit written as a word. So, like, let's say you took the day, not the month, not the year, and you wrote it as a word.
Okay.
Just like 8, really largely. So it's the 8th of April, right? And that's it. So that's how I guess. It's cool, right?
That's great. Wow.
Yeah, so I can literally, no peaks, no nothing, guess and tell you the exact date of birth in 20, 30 seconds. It's a technique I created a number of years ago. And you shouldn't have no clue how that works. A little small section of it. Good. That's fine. If you want to learn that, I do recommend checking out Isabella's Star. It's very in-depth. It's very heavy. And there are a series of techniques, but that's how good it can look, right? So it's well worth learning this stuff if you're not carrying billets, if you're not carrying pens. But yeah, let's talk about a couple of techniques. Let's talk about peaks, then we'll look at anagrams. I'll then direct you towards a brilliant anagram generator where you can make your own anagrams. I'll briefly talk through the overview of how I anagram and how I do things like this, and you'll be able to do it yourself. So let's have a look at billets. So the easiest peak in the world, one of my favorites, comes from the card world, right? What I do is I take a look at card techniques and I think about how I'd use those card techniques for myself in mentalism. And one routine that you will know if you've played with cards is the ambitious card routine, right? So this comes directly from that, except the difference is instead of it going inside the deck, what I do is something slightly different. So behind my back, I'd have the cards like this, and I'd ask Stacey to write down a piece of information. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to imagine that Stacey's writing down the word peak. Now, we hardly have any billets here. There is going to be more billets coming, but for now, we'll just imagine that Stacey's wrote down the word peak, because that's going to save time and you can see it. That's behind my back. I'm talking. And then what I do is behind my back, I flip this over. So I'm flipping 2 over. It's called a double turnover as 1. Of course, Stacey doesn't know that I'm flipping 2 over. So I do this. Stacey, just sign that so it can't be switched. Now Stacey signs on there like this. Then I tell Stacey to take that card, to fold it, and it gets folded and folded again. Now Stacey thinks she's holding on to the card that's got her name on it. Stacey's not. What Stacey's actually holding is a billet that has nothing on it. Right, it's a dummy billet. What I have is what Stacey wrote. It has your name on it, but I mean no information. So it's a dummy billet. This one does incidentally have the word spider on it just because we used that earlier, but it'd have nothing other than Stacey's signature. So Stacey's signature might be Stacey, like this. It's folded and folded. It doesn't actually have information that's relevant to the trick. But because Stacey can see her signature and she's got hold of this, she believes it still says the word peak inside it. Does that make sense? Yeah. I now take this and I go, right. And this is one of my favorite things on the planet. I'll stand Stacey and I'll move Stacey forwards. I take that to the bottom like this, and now I literally turn these over and I say Stacey, and I turn Stacey As I say, now focus on this in your head. And as I do this, I bring it into my line of sight. So we talked about this earlier. Just to show you again, this is here. I can either turn this piece of card over, keep it to myself. I don't do that. I put it to the bottom so I can still show you the stack. I hold these like this as I move Stacey. And I say, right, Stacey, in your head, focus on, and I bring my hands up to the outside so you'd be stood in front of me. This is your shoulders as I'm repositioning you. Behind your back, I literally take these like this and I go, in your head, Stacey. And now this is in my line of sight. In your head, just imagine what this is. I come back round, I say, right, and I take a blank one, I write this on it. So let's say this is the one that I've written. It's not, it's the one that Stacey's written, but I pretend I've wrote this. And I go, Stacey, I've written something down. Can I see where it is that you wrote? Now I take this, I open it, peek. What were the reason for, and I turn it. It's got nothing on it, but I wouldn't turn it if it didn't have anything on it. It's a tiny little subtlety, but this would be blank. As I'm turning this, I go, peek. At first I thought you wrote keep, but peek, okay. Tear it, get rid of the evidence, it's gone. The evidence is now gone. Stacey, have a look what I wrote down, and then Stacey lifts it up, sees that I wrote the word peek, and then I get a hit. That's a billet peek. It's a nice easy one. It's just a nice little thing that you can add at a moment's notice into your set. Let's say, for example, that you weren't comfortable doing it like that. I'm going to use playing cards to represent billets, right? It's going to be the same. It just makes it easy. Stacey's written something on this one, right? I'm again double, right? So there's a double behind my back. Stacey, take it, put that into the middle somewhere. So Stacey puts it into the middle. Right, this is what I want you to do. Now I do a double, ambitious card. Watch, I do a double turnover. I say, right, imagine your word written there for me. This would be billets, it won't be playing cards. I take these, I turn them over and I say, right, just focus on it. Imagine what it is that you've wrote. And now I'm peeking what you've put. You think it's in the middle.
Right.
It's just the ambitious card. You can also use a multitude of other techniques. The top change that we talked about earlier, where the card comes in, you're top changing out, that stays on the table. You can use a top change there. You can use this whole thing where you're doing this and then you're pretending to put a card in the middle and it's really going under the top card. Now you show a blank on the top, you put that to the bottom, and whenever you're ready, you just say, now just focus on what you wrote on your card, and you're just looking at it. Any way you can get that information. Right, so it's any questions on any of that stuff? Because I mean, it's fairly simple and obvious, but if you have a question or... We good?
Yeah, no, it's clear.
Okay. Nice and easy. Just find a way to peek that piece of information. Bring it into your line of sight, the exact same as the shiner that we discussed earlier. There's a lot of carryover in these effects, but the reason is because there's so many ways to use the principles and techniques that I'm sharing with you, right? Another little peek, a nice easy one. This one's super simple. It's called a palm, right? You get them to place their card on the stack, hang it over very slightly. Your fingers come, as your fingers are on top of this like this, they'll make contact, and what will happen is that card will flick itself off into your palm. You now hold these like this and say, concentrate on what you wrote here. And I'm looking at it right here in my hand. Right, whatever they've wrote down, I'm looking at right here. To clean this up, I can either drop my hand onto my lap like this, and then when these are here, I can spread them and move them over, just take them, and I can clean up just by moving them over. Don't be afraid of taking your time to peek. That's another thing. What a lot of people do is they think they need to look straight away, and that's not the case. Stand somebody there for a second, talk. Get the person comfortable with you, them thinking it's there. You're not moving, you're just literally sat, and you're waiting, it's here. You're sat. Now, Stacey, think about this. You took it. You wrote down something. And I'm just looking in that moment. You see, I brought it into my line of sight, and it's so disarming because it's been done and delivered at the right time, right? Yeah, that's what a billet peek is. That's a simple billet peek. I know that there is some crossover from the last set when we talked about that. The reason that's important to talk about the billet peek on this set is because there are going to be people that get this set that are not going to own the previous set and forget their shiner. If they're forgetting their shiner, this is a technique that you need to know. Another technique that we'll quickly talk about is the center tear. So a center tear is where you've got a piece of card, you've drawn a circle in the middle, so we'll use this one because this is already designed. It's got mini on the back, but ignore that. It's got this on the back. Let's say that you wrote a number, the number 13. you've seen me do centre tears on previous sets, so I'm just going to explain it. You get the person to fold this, they fold it again. Now you pretend you've missed the thought. You take this, you tear it. It's best done with paper, but as you tear this like this, you're ripping it into pieces. This gets folded, mixed up. These pieces get thrown off to the side. You don't need them, and that's it. And now you're holding out the one piece that's important. And when you open this, the circle in the middle will still stay, and you've still got the piece of information. So just to show you that, the circle's drawn in the middle. They fold it again. This is better with paper, with card. It's incredibly difficult. You put your thumb stays there in the corner where the solid crease is, not the open edges, the solid crease, right? Your thumb goes like this. You tear around it. Readjust, turn, do it again. Tear as much as you can as you're not looking. I'm keeping them in what they call a finger palm, which is down here. These are still getting torn. Literally at this point, let's say these are here, I take them into this hand, I tear one more time, I keep my hand on the table like this, and I gesture as I just throw the pieces. I don't need them, right? I'm literally, from your angle there, you can't see anything. From there you can, because I'm exposed. But I'm just gesturing. This hand comes down, I'm just chatting, and I say, right, we messed that up, maybe we'll be able to get that later, and I'm just opening it. Literally, when I open this now, it's got the word that's in the middle and the circle, and I can look at it at my own leisure. Remember, you've got your entire performance to look at that, because you say, well, maybe come back to that later. This gives you a one ahead. We can use the technique that we used earlier with the one ahead. Just to talk to you about dressing. Dressing is important. When you become a pro, the difference between just learning this stuff, being an amateur which is sat at home doing it, and being a pro, is that pros are thinking about how they're going to perform this stuff at gigs. Pros are thinking about how they're going to perform this stuff on video, and how they're ultimately going to make money or turn it into a career by using these techniques. So if I were filming this, what would I do? I'd say, right, you know, we all have a celebrity hall pass. So if you've ever been with somebody long enough, your partner always says, you know, if there were one person that you could date that was a celebrity, like, who would it be? And then you make this silly agreement where you say, look, if you ever meet them, feel free to go off and do this. And if you ever meet them, feel free to go off and do this. It's a little game that a lot of couples play, or, you know, partners play. What's interesting about that is you say, right, so let's go through that scenario. Can any of you that are single, that are not going to offend anybody, think of somebody that they'd marry in a heartbeat if they were offered the chance to marry? So somebody comes up, write the name down for me. So they write it down in the center of the circle. It's folded and folded. We need a best man, or we need a bridesmaid. Please pick who that is. Somebody comes up and stands there. Did you bring the rings? No. What about the confetti? No. Some best man you are. You can make sort of jokes there, right? Typical magician jokes. Then you say, right, I tell you what, we've got an alternative. How about this for the confetti? You tear that up, drop the pieces into the hand. Now, in a moment, I'm going to take you through an imaginary ceremony. The confetti is going to be thrown in the air. And now I'm looking at what it is as I put my hand on your back to move you forwards. I'm using the same blocking. If you're going to touch somebody, this is important. There's some that you should not be touching people unless you know that person's comfortable having you touch them. Watch How to Control Minds. The moment that I'm doing the hand stick, I can't remember the name of the girl. I think it were Anna or Hannah or something like that. I say, do you mind if I touch your hands? I ask, do you mind if I touch your hands? Right? Do you mind? Can we just step this way? You're all right? I mean, moving you for a second, just step there and stop. I'm getting people comfortable with me touching here and here. Never, ever, ever, ever touch somewhere below the waist, even if it's innocent and you're saying just move forwards. You know, it's not 1970, and this is something that's very easy in this day and age to get in trouble for, even if you're innocent and you're thinking innocently. If you're going to touch someone's arm, ask them if you can touch them. Do you mind if I move you into position? Is that all right? Can we just step this way? And I'm just at fingertips, just step this way for me. Never intrusive, but this is allowing me to do this. Because mentalism, same as magic, there's physicality to it sometimes. And sometimes it's like double cross. You need to grab somebody's hands to move them. When we're teaching this stuff to you, I'm consciously aware of where I'm touching, how I'm moving somebody, how I'm perceived by my audience. Where's it acceptable for me to like, if I'm doing something with your hands, is it acceptable for me to grab your hands? You have to think about that nowadays. But that's the difference between, you know, somebody who's just starting this, an amateur, and a pro. People who are just starting this and amateurs are performing for their friends and family. They're performing for their workmates. Do you know? So it's not really a thing for them. They're in the office and they've been known for 10 years. They know when they say, lift your hands a bit higher for me. They know that. we've known each other for a couple of years now. So if I say to you, can I just move your hands? You know me well enough to know that I'm moving your hands. That's it. It's like, but imagine I just come up to you for the first time and you were performing on the strip and I started grabbing your hands and moving them. Do you know what I mean? As someone you don't know, this guy who's 6 foot, he's covered in tattoos all over his face and now he's grabbing my hands and coming into my personal space. It's very easy to be perceived as something it's not, right? And professionals have to be aware of that, right? Again, I'm not talking too much about that stuff, so we'll move on. But you get what I'm saying. Like, it's very important. Sure. You know, you have your own show in Vegas, like, and you see the reviews coming in, and you get to analyze that stuff. I'm not saying that sort of stuff happens in your show, but you know that if people are going to complain, they're going to complain about everything. It could be anything. It could be that light were flashing a bit too much and this, and the sound were a bit too loud for me. I thought it could be, I'm not saying that yours has, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, people these days need to feel comfortable to be able to appreciate the magic. And that's what your job is. So that's billets, that's billet peaks. I taught you a really simple billet peak. I've taught you a centre tear. I've told you how to dress the centre tear in that routine, how you can pretend you've messed up. Okay, we don't need this, to get rid of it. These are just being shared here as an alternative to the shiner. If you want that billet peak that I showed you, go pick up Peak Encores. It's on sale right now on the internet. You can reach out to Richard Bush. I'd highly recommend reaching out to Richard Bush. I know Stacey's going to be doing that after we've finished this. She's going to be on, Richard, I want to know this from Peak Encores. So yeah. Any questions on billet stuff, billet peaks, anything you want to ask me?
No.
I know we've gone on for a lot there about it, but you know, and it is hot in this room, so we've been sat in here for hours. So yeah, right, that's that. Let's move on to the next thing. So now I want to discuss how to use equivoque. It's either equivoque, equivoke, magician's choice, call it what you want, it doesn't matter. It's a technique that allows you to be able to seemingly force the impossible. So I'm going to do it with a playing card, and I'm going to show you how I do it to get to one card, and Will's going to be the guinea pig. So I'll go through, I shall take a card out. It really doesn't matter what the card is, you can force any card, but I like to use this one. Will, right now, do you know what this card is? No. So if I ask you to try to guess the colour, what colour do you think it is?
Red.
What suit do you think it is?
Heart.
What do you think the card is?
8.
It's not, right? But that's a guess. And the reason that you failed there is because you just bam, 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 named things. You didn't really think about each decision. You didn't make any choices. I'm going to try to put this into your head. I'm going to try to put this in your head in a way that you're going to know exactly what it is without knowing that you know. So let's imagine that I were holding the colours red or black. Right? Let's imagine you were going to take one of them. Which one do you take?
Red.
So that leaves me with the blacks. You could have taken the blacks, right? So I've got the suits, clubs and spades. In your head, I just want you to change between club and spade over and over again. Keep changing, keep changing, keep changing, and stop. Now, don't tell me where you've stopped. If I'd have stopped you a second later, this would have obviously been different. In fact, if you were to change one more time, where would you be?
Spades.
And that's fair, right? I didn't know you were going to say that. So black, spade. I want you to imagine now that you had the picture cards in your left hand and the number cards in your right hand. I've given you the cards, you're looking at them. So just hand one of them to me. So the pictures, that's a fair choice, right? And genuinely for people that are watching this at home, you did hand me the picture cards then. So let's imagine that there's the Jack, the Queen, and the King. So just imagine that you reach forwards and out of the air you take 2 of those. Which 2 are you taking?
King and the Jack.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So that just leaves the Queen floating in the air. So we said black, we said spade, and you just left the Queen of Spades floating in the air between us. Whose were those decisions?
Mine.
Did I influence them in any way?
No.
Did I force them in any way?
No.
And we arrive at the Queen of Spades. Exactly the card that were floating in the air, proving that it's so easy to be able to force somebody to go for any card. I can show you that again. We could use a different card. It's nice and simple. I'll break it down after that. In fact, you say stop and I'll just stop at one.
Stop.
This one? Do you want to change it?
Yeah.
Say stop. This one?
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah.
So I'll run through this again. Now this is going to sound different to what it sounded like the last time because I am using Magician's Choice, and it'll give you a look at how I quickly change the language. So I want you to imagine, Will, that I'm holding red and black cards. I want you to imagine you were going to take one of them. Which one are you taking? So that obviously leaves me with the red cards, right? The hearts and the diamonds. So in your head, I want you just to change between heart and diamond over and over and over again. So you're just changing over and over, and then you stop. Now, if I'd have asked you a second later, this would have been different. In fact, if you were to change one more time between heart and diamond, where would you be?
Diamond.
And again, that's a fair choice. I'm not pushing you here, right? So I want you to imagine that the picture cards are in your left hand, the number cards are in your right hand, right? So just reach forward and give one of those to me. So you're giving me which ones?
Numbers.
The numbers. So imagine that the numbers, so we'd obviously have aces that we'll class as a picture, 2 right through to 10 are spread out in the air, right? What I want you to do is imagine that some of these cards just fall towards the floor. Do the odds or the evens fall towards the floor?
The odds.
So the odds fall, boom, and drop down onto the floor, leaving the even cards in the air. So that's the 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10, right? So what I want you to do is just off the top of your head, we're going to just separate one card from the rest. Just name one of them.
8.
It's gone, right? So now you're left with the 2, the 4, the 6 and the 10, right? Imagine grabbing 2 of those. Which 2 do you grab?
2 and the 10.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So again, they're gone. So that leaves now the 4 and the 6. Between the 4 and the 6, imagine that you're holding them in your hands. And you hand one to me. Which one are you handing me?
The 4.
Are you sure? You don't have to get rid of that one. Do you want to change?
No, I want to get rid of it.
Okay, good. So that leaves you with the 6. You chose red. You chose diamond. You chose number cards. You imagine spreading them out in the air. And I said, we'll eliminate them one at a time to end up on 1. You first eliminated the 8. Then you eliminated the 10 and the 4. Then you were down to 2 cards. And I said, are you sure that's the one you want to get rid of? Leaving us with a 6 of diamonds. And there is a 6 of diamonds. Again, proving that you're easy to influence, or easier than you thought you was. So you obviously just saw 2 quick performances of Will behind the camera choosing cards. Now, obviously, Will didn't know the outcome of either of those situations. But I'm going to show you how it works. And to do this, I'm going to break it down piece by piece. Now, I will say that this works better with the picture cards, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm picking a picture card out. I'll take out a card and I'll place it on my leg. And in a moment, I'll show you exactly how I get Will to that card. So let's say that I need to force Will a red card. This is exactly how it's going to work. I start off by saying, Will, I'm holding the reds and the blacks. Imagine I'm holding the colour red, the colour black. If you were to take one from me, which would you take?
Red.
That's a free choice. So that means you've got the hearts and the diamonds, right? Notice how when Will takes red, I say to him, that's a free choice. You've got the reds, which should obviously be the hearts and the diamonds. Let's say that Will takes the black. So Will, I'm holding the colours red and black. Which one do you want to take?
Black.
So you're taking away the black cards, which obviously leaves me with the red cards, the heart and the diamond. So it doesn't matter what Will says. I just quickly change path, and I've done this 1,000 times. I quickly change my path to match what Will says. So I'll run those both very quickly again. So Will, I'm holding the colours red and black. If you were to take one, which would you take?
Red.
That's a free choice. So you obviously have the hearts and the diamonds. Now let's run it again, but this time choose blacks. I'm holding the reds and the blacks. If you were to take red or black, which would you take?
Black.
So you're taking black, which leaves me with the reds, which is obviously the hearts and the diamonds. That seems super fair, right? Now I'm about to use a principle called the tombola principle. I did reach out to Michael Murray to share this principle. Michael, give me his blessing. He's an absolute genius. If you don't know who Michael Murray is, go over to www.mindfx.co.uk. Buy anything with that man's name on it. He's an absolute top draw mentalist. So now we're down to the heart and diamond. So I say to Will, keep changing between the heart and diamond in your head. So just keep changing over and over again between heart and diamond. Keep changing and stop. Now, I don't know where Will stopped. It doesn't matter. Will, I think you'd agree if I'd have changed you one more time, this would have been different. If you were to change one more time between the heart and diamonds, where would you be?
Hearts. And
you could have done that. So if Will says diamond at that point, if he says diamond, I say, and that's a free choice, right? And I'm forcing a diamond here, but Will didn't. He said hearts. I say, and you could have done that if you'd have changed one more time. But that tells us that you stopped then on diamonds. That's fair to say. I couldn't have known where you were going to stop, but you stopped on diamonds, right? So now what's really beautiful about this is I've forced the diamond. Now I need to force number or picture, right? So let's say that I say to Will, I want you to imagine that you take the picture cards in your left hand and the number cards in your right hand, and I look away like this, and I'm just watching Will out the corner of my eye. So you've got the picture cards and the number cards. Just hand one to me, Will. So I'll take those and throw them away, which leaves you with a set of cards in your hand. So what I'm doing is watching which Will hands me. I want to force a picture. So left are pictures, right are numbers. I look away, but I'm still watching him. So just hand me one of those, Will. So we'll throw those away, which leaves you with what? What cards have you got?
Pictures.
Right, now if he'd have handed me the pictures, I'm looking away, just hand one of those to me, Will. Which ones did you hand me?
Pictures.
The picture cards. So we have the diamonds that are picture cards. So we have the jack, the queen, the king. No matter what happens there, I'm forcing the diamonds and the picture cards, right? So I say we've got jack, queen, and king. Now, in the example we performed a few seconds ago, Will took the jack and the king. And I just said, good, you're taking those away, which leaves the queen floating in the air. This time, I might not want to force that. So it depends what's in my hand. The queen's a good one to force because it's a very easy one to force, especially if you pick a heart and you're performing a female. It's going to be very easy to do. But let's say that I'm forcing this one. Will doesn't know what it is. Let's imagine then you've got the jack, the queen, and the king in the air. Just imagine that you take two of those out of the air. Well, which ones are you taking?
Jack, the king.
The jack and the king.
Yeah.
So you've got hold of the jack and the king. Hand one to me. Which one do you hand me?
King.
Are you sure that's the one that you want to give me?
Yep.
That leaves you with one card. This entire time you've had the cards in your hand. You imagined that you had the red cards. You imagined that you had the diamonds. You imagined that you had the picture cards. Then you imagined ending up on one card. And the card you ended up at was the jack of diamonds. And that'll force this, right? The end's just the exact same as the beginning. If Will had have handed me the jack, so you've taken the jack and the king, Will. Hand one to me. Which one do you want to hand me?
Jack.
So the jack. So this is the jack of diamonds. That's a free choice, right? No matter what happens, we end up here. Watch this a few times for numbers. So I'll change it. I'll change the card. In fact, I'll pick one at random. So even I don't know what I'm going to end up with. This card, right? Now this is the most difficult card in the deck to do this with. But watch how swiftly I do it. So Will, imagine I'm holding the colours red or black. Imagine taking one. Which one do you take?
Red.
And that's a completely free choice. So you've got the hearts and the diamonds. So in your head, just keep changing between heart and diamond like a roulette wheel spinning with the hearts and diamonds on it. So keep changing and stop. Now, if I'd have asked you to change one more time, this would have been different. In fact, if you were to change one more time, where would you be?
I've been on hearts.
That's a free choice, right? Again, I'm not forcing any of this. You decided you wanted reds. You've decided that it were going to be the heart, right? So we obviously have the picture cards and the number cards. So imagine I put the pictures into your left hand, which would be the jack, queen, king, and ace. We'll class the ace as a picture card, and the numbers in your right hand. Okay? So I'm going to look away. Just hand me one of those, and I'll throw that over my shoulder, leaving you with a series of cards. Which cards have you got in your hand? The pictures. So we've got the jack, the queen, the king, and the ace.
Yeah.
So just imagine that you reach forwards and you grab two of those. Which two are you grabbing?
King and the ace.
Are you sure those are the ones you want? This is it. This is your final decision. You've got the king and the ace. Hand one to me. Which are you handing me?
The ace.
The ace of hearts. And then this card is the ace of hearts, right? You can see how seamlessly that played out. Because this were an ace, I didn't think too much about adding the ace in as a picture card. It's a variable card. It could go into the numbers or the pictures. If you've got a picture card that you've picked out here, what that means is that you could put the ace into the numbers. But because this ace is the card that I picked, I put it into the pictures because it's a smaller range. So let's do this again. I'll look away. We'll just run it one more time. Play with this. It's super simple. I'll look away. Okay, so now this gives a good example of how this would change. Will, imagine I'm holding the reds or the blacks. Imagine you were to take one. Which are you taking?
Black.
That's a fair choice. You chose the blacks. Obviously, that's the spade and the clubs. In your head, just keep changing between spade and club over and over and over again. Keep changing, and stop. Now, if I'd have asked you to change one more time, this would have been different. In fact, if you were to change one more time, where would you be?
Clubs.
And that's a fair choice as well. So you chose black and you chose club. Imagine I handed you the picture cards in your left hand and the number cards in your right hand, right? I'm going to look this way. Hand one to me. And I'll just throw those over my shoulder, leaving you with a set of cards. What cards do you have in your hand? The number cards. Now, obviously, the numbers range from 2 all the way to 10. The pictures are the jack, queen, king, and ace. Imagine you see 2 to 10 lined out in the air. Just to show you how random this could be, if you were to name the first number that popped in your head, what would it be?
3.
3. So that's gone. We'll get rid of it. And every time you name a number, we'll get rid of them, just so that this process stays congruent. For now, though, just imagine you had the cards minus the 3 floating in the air, and in a moment you either imagine the odds or evens falling towards the floor. Do you see the odds or the evens falling towards the floor? The evens start to fall out the air and land on the floor. They're gone, leaving just the odds. So now all you've got is 5, 7 and 9, right? And that's fair. I didn't know what you were going to choose, right? Just imagine that you were taking 2 of those. Which 2 are you taking?
7 and 9.
Are you sure you're happy with those choices? Yeah. Imagine handing one to me. Which one do you hand me?
7.
The 7 of clubs. It's a fair choice, right? You could have handed me any card, and I have the 7 of clubs, right? It's a beautiful little thing. What happens if Will had said that the odd cards fell on the floor? So we spread them out, and I say, right, Will, imagine that some of these just start to fall and cascade towards the floor. Which ones fall toward the floor? So the odds. So you said the odds this time, so they're falling. Which ones fall? The odd cards? Okay. Yeah, we did evens because the 2, 4, 6 and 8 fell, leaving those. But let's imagine the odds fell. So the odds start to fall towards the floor and they land face up. And obviously all you have left is the 5, the 7 and the 9. So imagine you reach forwards onto the floor and you pick 2 of those up. All I'm doing is changing, you see, the language. And Will's learning this for the first time, the same time you are. He doesn't know any of this. Right, so let's just quickly run that to show you if it had been odds. So imagine him spread out in the air. Now the reason I have him name a number, especially when it's a 7, is because most people will name a 7 out of the gate. But I didn't flinch, so name a different number this time. So Will, the numbers are spread out in the air, 2 to 10. Just name the first number that pops in your head.
4.
4, and we take that and it's gone. And every time you name a number, we'll get it out of the way. So imagine that the numbers minus the number 4 are floating in the air. The odds or the evens cascade and fall towards the floor. Which ones are falling towards the floor?
The odds.
And they land face up on the floor, meaning that there's a 3, 5, 7 and 9 on the floor. Imagine reaching forwards and picking 2 of those up. Which 2 do you reach forwards and pick up?
The 9 and the 3.
So the 9 and the 3, just like I said, everyone you name will get rid of, right? So now I'm reverting back to that. Look how quick I'm changing. I'm on my feet, right? So that leaves the 7 and the 5. You've got hold of the 7 and the 5 now. You pick those up. Hand one of those to me. Which one do you hand me?
5.
And that's gone, leaving you with 1 playing card out of 52. The 7 of clubs. And then boom, you show it. If you're working with multiple people, get other people to remember the colour, you remember the suit, and this person remembers the number, because what that'll do is mean that this person doesn't forget. But that is what they call equivoque, magician's choice, or equivoque. And that's the fastest way to get down to 1 playing card, but it looks beautiful. It seems so fair. And you don't just have to force playing cards with this. Once you've practiced it and rehearsed it, you can force objects around a table. You can force people. If you've pre-showed somebody or you know information about somebody, you can use a line of people like you would the cards to pick the people. Light-haired, dark-haired. It's the exact same. Just make binary choices. Tall and small. It doesn't make a difference. Glasses, no glasses, right? You can force people with this. You can do chair tests. Every technique that I'm teaching you on this set, you can use for multiple different applications. You're not forced into using just one application. So I really hope you enjoyed that. Let's quickly take a look at something else. So Bree, thank you for agreeing to participate in this experiment. I have to say this is probably one of the most interesting bars that I've ever visited in the entire world. And I noticed there's dollar bills littered around the walls and the ceiling and everything else. Can you tell us what those dollar bills are?
Yeah, it's a old mining tradition actually for people to come and put dollar bills with a message or their name on it. This place has been here since the 1950s.
1950?
So, yes, since the 1950s. So people, there's dollars upon dollars of all denominations and even different countries.
If you had to take a guess, how many dollar bills were in this room? How many would you say?
They actually counted a few years back. It was over 30,000.
Over 30,000?
Yeah.
So there's 30,000 different memories that have been deposited here from people that have visited from all around the world.
Yep.
You said something interesting a minute ago. We were about to shoot and you said, oh, I'm going to have to go, but I think I know what they're going to drink anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You start to get a feel for people and you start to know how they think, right?
Yeah.
Would you believe me if I told you that I knew exactly what dollar bill you'd pick off this wall if you went round to choose one in advance?
I don't think you will know it, however.
I wrote it down. I want you just to put that into your pocket for a second.
Okay.
So just put that in there. That's good. I want you to take your time and walk around the room, and you're going to go up to $1 bill. You're going to put your finger on it and say, this is the first dollar bill I want to pick.
Okay.
I'll write it down so we don't forget it, and then we'll repeat that a second time, and then you'll choose one of the two.
Okay.
Right? So to start with, let's have a look around the room and go pick a dollar bill. So take your time, look around the room, and then just point to one that you feel interested in.
Okay, okay. Hi. Yeah, it's me. Okay. I'll be right over, okay? I know what she wants to drink too.
Oh, there we go.
For the record. Okay. I'm gonna go where I'm still.
You take your time, really take your time. 30,000 different choices, and all you've got to do is pick the one that I'm thinking of.
Okay. So it has to be within reach?
No, you can pick any one you want. You're just going to point to it. You tell me, you can put your finger on it or just point if you can't reach it.
Okay. Then I have the first one chosen.
Okay, which one is that?
I'm gonna do the second one in the middle there. The C-U-R-L-E-Y.
So curly, I'll make a note of that just so that we don't forget it.
Yeah.
Curly.
That's the one I'm
Okay.
choosing for the first one.
The second one, so take your time.
Okay.
You tell me which one you want. Which one's the second one? Lots of different notes. She's really taking her time. She's probably going to screw this up. It'll be fun.
Okay. I'm gonna go this one.
So the Islanders.
Yes.
So wait a second.
That's what I'm gonna do for the second one.
So hold your hands like this. Imagine that you've got curly here and Islanders here.
Okay.
So take your time. Change your mind a few times.
Okay.
Hand one to me. Which one are you handing me? Curly.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is the one we're going with, curly.
Yeah.
Take that out of your pocket for a second.
This better.
Yeah, just really closely. Come here, come in close for the camera. Look, take this, hold it. Look, this goes in here. Curly.
Yeah.
If that said curly on it, would you be impressed? Out of the 30,000 different things you could have
I will
chose.
be mind blown.
Open it up, let's see.
Are we opening? No.
Cool, right?
No, I'm
Girly.
shocked. What?
And you could have gone with that one. You could have gone with the Islanders or any other one. But I think it proves that we are to some degree predictable.
No way.
Thank you for playing, Bree.
Thank you. No, I'm literally like mind blown.
So now let's talk about the Bulldog clip. This is an interesting device that's affectionately known as the Austin clip, being that this was released by Bob Austin in 1953. So it's a very, very old prop, but it's a brilliant prop. And it's been released by a myriad of performers since that point. And we talked to Etienne Pradier, which is one of the most incredible magicians on the planet. And we said, look, I think this is closest to your version of it. Do you mind if we put this out? And he said, no, do what you want. So here we are doing it. Now, I'm going to tell you explicitly that this would be cut down first. I'm not cutting it down for one reason. It's because you'll still be able to see it the entire time during the explanation section. What I will do is I'll use the marker pen to show you where you'd cut it. So I'll put it in and then I'll show you where you'd cut it down so that you have a good example of how this works without me having to cut things down, get into a full craft session. You miss what's happening because of that, right? So the way this works is you get your dental bands that also come in the box and your clip. Your dental band, give it a tiny stretch. Don't take it to its limits, but just give it a little stretch so that it's used to being stretched. Now take your billet, fold it into quarters and place it onto the rubber band. So you're going to place it like this. So basically it's hanging down. Now take the edge that's exposed in the band and put that over one of the wings of the Bulldog clip. So what you've got is this. Open the clip, use your billet to stretch the band. You're going to feed it over the top of one side, turn it round, and then do the same on the other side. So what you'll have, the band will go over the top of the Bulldog clip. It'll go down like this, and then the billet will sit comfortably inside the clip. When you let go of this, it's going to shoot up, right? You could double this up if you don't think the tension's enough, right? This is it, like this. So when you press it, what's going to happen is it shoots up inside. You need it to do that because what you're going to do now, and this is the important bit, you're going to take a pair of scissors. I'd make a mark on this with a Sharpie, just here, there and there. And what that's going to do when you pull this out now, it's going to give you an indication of where you need to snip each of these sides down, right? So just for reference, you'd cut it slightly shorter than these. So I'm going to draw a line on here that you can see where you'd cut. That'll give you an indication of exactly how much you need to cut off. That's going to make this really easy for you to snip. If you try cutting this beforehand, you'll end up cutting the wrong edges. This gives you an indication of exactly when this goes in, bang, and if the lines are still visible, test it. If the lines are still visible, just make them a little bit bigger, right? So take it, add some more onto it. You only need to do this a couple of times. Prep a few of these and you're all done, right? So there you go. And now, bang, that'll work perfect. That's the exact amount I need to cut off. I'd cut these off and now your switching device is ready to use. This is prepped. Let's pretend these edges are cut. We know they're not cut, right? I'm showing you that they're not cut for one reason. When I show you the switch that I'm using, you'll still be able to see this billet and it makes it easier to understand, but you'd have cut these off, right? So the performance happens. In the performance that you are likely to have seen, you'll notice that we went into a bar at the side of the road and there were hundreds, if not thousands of dollar bills that littered the walls. I think there was something like $30,000 bills. And the idea was for whoever it was that were in the performance to select one of the bills and then you predicted it in advance. Now, what I actually did in that performance is I had her select 2. Now, there's a reason I had a select 2. You could have a select 1. I had a select 2. And I think she ended up on curly. But let's say that she went for Rhode Island and curly. What I do is I go, okay, so this is a thing called double writing. I slide this down. It's called a glide, like this. It's imperceivable from this side, right? I write the word. So you said Rhode... It was Rhode Island, right? Okay. And now, as I've done that, I've wrote whichever one I want to force, slide this back up, and I put Rhode, and then Island, and I say, and what's the second one? Now I've got Rhode Island written on both pieces of card. Okay, it's written on 2. It's called double writing. And then curly. Now here's the nice bit. I can openly display this. These are your choices. Right? I take this and I put them down. I say they're going to be important in a moment. This is just so we don't forget. And now I talk for a second. As I'm talking, I mercury fold this piece of card. Now the way I do this, there's better ways to do this, but I just simply, right underneath everybody's noses, fold right up and I wait a beat now. That's it. So this is covered. I'm just talking, I'm gesturing. There's no heat on this. The heat's here and on the bulldog clip. This is folded here like this. So this would be done whilst talking if you wanted to. Now here's a little tip. You can have this pre-folded underneath. So you've already got it already with its folds in place, which is going to make the transition of this a lot smoother. So this is sat here like this, you've double row, and now all you're doing is literally lifting your thumb like this, and as you're talking, you can fold it again with your thumb. You're just pushing your thumb across, right? That's if you've got it pre-folded. Sometimes you're going to find yourself in a performance where you're not ready and you're not going to have it folded. And in those performances, just talk, gesture, ask questions to the spectator so everybody's attention's on the spectator. In that moment, just take your thumb, fold up. As they're talking, fold again, and that's it. But in this example, you could literally do this as you're passing it from hand to hand, like that's folded once. And as you're gesturing, that's folded twice, and that's now set, right? It's nice and easy. So now I'm going to use a quiver here, right? Because there's 2. I've now got the stack's going to be got rid of. What I do is I take my thumb, I clip this into a thumb palm as these go down, and I just sit casually. That's it. So I'm talking about Rhode Island and curly. I say out of these two, Dwayne, we've got Rhode Island and curly. Just keep changing between Rhode Island and curly in your head. Keep changing, keep changing, keep changing, and stop. Now you know where you stopped. If I'd have asked you to change one more time, this would have been different. In fact, if you were to change one more time, where would you be?
Curly.
And you could have done that, right? But that tells you stopped where?
Rhode Island.
And that's a fair choice. Now I'm using the tombola principle that we've discussed on this set, right? So now I say, have you got the clip? Now this is the important moment. This is going to come up and this is the move. As they're doing this, you're readjusting this so that it's the same shape as this. So you literally, your hands are at your side. Nobody's watching you because everybody's watching them change their mind. This is here like this. You literally hold this like this. We get this. This comes into your hand. You go, in fact, I want you to hold on to it. This would be gone now. I've left the lines on it so you can see it's still here, right? So it's like this. Your hand comes up like this. It makes contact with this. So it makes contact with it like this. In fact, you take it. I don't want to touch it. Now you can hang this around the person's neck on a chain. If you're using the paperclip switch that we've discussed on this set as well, you can have a paperclip chain. You can put this on a lanyard. I put this on a little lanyard. I had it hanging around, I think her name was Bree, Bree's neck. But again, one more time, just nice and quick. Gets passed out. And now when this gets opened, your prediction says Rhode Island. It's as simple as that. This is how you use this in a simplest sense. You can use this to switch notes. You can use this to switch tickets. You can use this to switch anything that you want that fits inside there. And obviously these are billets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a section on different ideas using the Bulldog switch or the Austin clip, because I want to talk about serial divinations. I want to talk about impromptu serial divinations. I want to talk about billet switches that don't require the use of the Bulldog clip just in case you've forgotten your Bulldog clip. And I want to talk about the Terval principle, which is a really interesting principle that means that you don't have to actually touch anything. You don't have to write anything down. Somebody else is going to do that for you, right? But just to press a point, you do not need to do the equivoque on the end. You can literally have the spectator do one thing and you write it down so we don't forget. We'll come back to that later on. That gets folded in your own time. You could just literally be writing one thing. And then you say, right, where were the person? Now I miscalled. What did you say you went for? Rhode Island. Okay. You've got the clip. The clip comes in. This is going to go inside there. You lift this up and do what you've got to do. It's as simple as that. So after that explanation section, I wanted to show you me actually cutting down the billet and adding one little subtlety to the build side of this, because it's very important that I mention it just in case there's any confusion. We've drawn the lines on here, and what you're going to do is take a pair of scissors. Now, again, if you're under the age of 18, don't play with scissors. Get a parent to do this. We all know responsibility for anybody who injures herself using a pair of scissors. It's important for us to mention, but this gets cut down, and if you look, this still looks exactly like a billet. The only difference is that when you press this, it disappears completely, right? Which is great because now, when you put a little bit of tension on this, this means that when you've got this in your hand and this is hidden out, this sits around the neck, it allows you to come in and it'll look like it's just come out of there, and you can end with your hands completely empty. Another little tip, some people might feel guilty about the clear band across the top. I never do because nobody's looking for it. If you are, take your Sharpie pen, and we're going to use black art to disguise it. You literally take your Sharpie, colour the band in. We went for clear bands because you can see the black straight through them anyway. And now it's entirely invisible. So that's it. To retrieve the billet from the inside, I know that this should make sense, but maybe somebody missed it. You're literally opening it, you're placing your finger inside, and you're sliding it out. Just like that. And that's set and ready to go. It's sitting a lanyard around someone's neck. I like it in a lanyard because they can't look down to see it, but everybody else can. It allows you to go in front of them. You put your hand like this, and then you'd switch it. I think it's one of the nicest billet switches out there. Super low hanging fruit. And now I'm going to give you some additional ideas using this. So yeah, let's jump into those. So I want to talk to you about the Terval principle. The Terval principle is a really interesting principle that I first heard of in Practical Mental Effects. Now, depending on the version that you've got, your book might be called Practical Mental Magic. Practical Mental Magic, I believe the first edition were released in 1983 by a company called Dover Publications, and it's an absolute staple in mentalism. And if you've not read Practical Mental Magic or Practical Mental Effects, you need to get it. Theodore Hanneman's one of the greatest performers, creators of all time. I mean, I've got him tattooed on my hand. He's my absolute favourite. Inside that book, there were a principle called Terval by a guy called Orville Mayer, and you can find that principle in the billets section right after Bert Rees. And the idea is, one spectator is going to do the writing for you, and it takes advantage of other spectators not knowing a spectator's handwriting. So if you don't want to write this down, what you can do is, let's say, for example, I know Stacey's watching this. Stacey's about to come and join me in a second in the chair so we can run through some explanations together. They require more than one person. There might be a couple of studio performances as well. But let's say that Stacey is in the background. She's one of the friends of Dwayne, and I say, right, I want you to take this piece of card, and what I want you to do is just keep a note of what I ask you to keep a note of, because I forget things very easily, or people change their mind, and it just means that I don't have to worry about that. Before we begin, I've got this, and then you bring this out and you hang it around Dwayne's neck. So this sits around Dwayne's neck. Now what I'll do is I'll say, right, Dwayne, I'm going to have you select a playing card. It can be anything, this piece of information, it doesn't matter. And I run through a false process. Let's say I know I'm going to do a equivocate later in the day. Say, Dwayne, I've got reds or blacks. Which one do you want, reds or blacks?
Reds.
Okay, do you want heart or diamond?
Heart.
Pictures or numbers?
Pictures.
Which picture card do you want?
King.
King. Just write King of Diamonds down for me on there. Oh, sorry, King of Hearts. Write King of Hearts down, and then just fold it and fold it again for me. That's going to be important. I'll come back to that in a second. You'd have to worry about remembering it because we've got it written down over here, and I'll do something else, right? Now what I do is I say, okay, can I take that stack of cards back off you and that? And I take the folded piece of card, and now I get this in a finger palm ready, the one that Stacey's wrote for me. And then I go, right, okay, I nail a routine here, and now I come to you and I say, do you remember the playing card from earlier?
Yeah.
What was it?
King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. Now this has been round your neck the entire time, right? And I say, take hold of that. Can you just read what I put on there? So now you open it and you read Stacey's handwriting, but you don't know mine or Stacey's handwriting. So no way, and you freak out now. And now Stacey's done the handwriting for me, and it saves me having to do anything, right? It's just a nice little way to get someone else to do the work for you without having to do anything. And it's justified because you're going to remember what it is, but you say, do you remember what the card is? If they don't, they say, it was the King of Hearts, right, Stacey? Yeah. And I look and I point and I go, it's the King of Hearts, even though I've got this piece of card, right? So that's the Terval principle by Orville Mayer. It's a really interesting, Orville Mayer, depending on how you want to pronounce it. It's a really interesting principle. With a little bit of thought, you could use this for serial divinations. You can have this hanging, and this is how they used to do this. What they do is they take an old peanut butter jar. So let's say you're doing like a peanut butter and jelly transposition routine, and you emptied it out and you had the old Jiffy, is it a Jiffy jar? So you had the old Jiffy jar and you drill a hole in the top of it and you put a piece of string connecting this, you tie it there, you have it dangling down, and you have a knot through the top of the Jiffy lid and you tie it on. So this now gets suspended or put on the stage, so you can see this in this isolated Jiffy jar throughout the entire performance. Things happen all night, and what you do is you just say you're going to keep notes of them. So this could be a confabulation. It could be 5 things. You don't just have to go for one. So imagine all the way through the show you say to somebody, right, Dwayne, I want you to stand up, give me a place, and you write it down. You're going to give me this. 5 people, remember that information. Everybody in the audience, do your best to remember. We'll have this as a way to commit it to memory. Now later on in the show, you fold this, so you might already have it pre-folded as we discussed. Having this pre-folded allows that economy of motion, so when you're writing these on here, later when you're passing it from one hand to the other, it's like this, as you're just gesturing and talking. 2, now this is folded. You can easily palm this off. At the end of the performance, you get somebody to screw the lid off of the Jiffy jar. There's a piece of strings hanging down, you take the clip, you take this out, I don't want to touch it, and now you've got a confabulation that ends your parlour show that's been hanging in the Jiffy jar on display the entire time, which is a great way to use the Bulldog clip. I believe that's one of the original presentations that Bob Austin used back in the 50s, you know, and there were a series of performers that used this, from Quran to even right up to modern day performers. I believe that at some point people like Darren have even used stuff like this. So I mean, it's well worth looking at. You could do this with a serial divination, like I say, with a little bit of thought. You can use this as a piece of influence. You can use it as a prediction. Now, let's go off on a little bit of a tangent about the inherent problem with predictions. Let's say you're going to ask 5 people to stand up, and 5 people at random stand, they're selected by the throw of a paper ball, and you're claiming that you looked into the future and you saw what they were going to go for, then every single piece of mind reading in that show becomes obsolete. Now, the reason the mind reading comes obsolete is because if you really did have a dream about these 5 people picking these pieces of information, then why didn't you also have a dream about all the other things that everybody else were going to think of in the show as well? So I prefer to use this as either I know you now, so I'm going to write down what I think you're going to go for. I'm going to put it into the clip, and I make it look like I'm loading the clip, and then I put it into here, and it allows you to predict it. Mark and I had a fun idea for a television show using one of these, and what we were going to do is we were going to go to a flea market or a junkyard. We were going to walk up and we were going to see this on a stall in a little stationery box, and we'd have one pre-put in there in this little stationery box. We'd buy one, we'd pay the man 50p or 50 cents or whatever for the clip. We'd now take a piece of card, we'd write something down, we'd load it, and we'd say, oh, can we buy one of the lanyards as well? And we'd buy the lanyard, we'd hang it around somebody's neck. And now we'd say, right, you've got $20. The camera's going to follow you around this entire flea market. You're going to go buy something. The only rule is it has to be under $20, right? And then I want you to barter as well to try to get as much change back as possible. So they go around this flea market, and now you film them bartering backwards and forwards. It's $17. Will you do $15? No, 16. We'll meet in the middle. Perfect. The person comes back with $4. And now what you do is you just follow the camera around, watch what it is that they pick, watch how much they pay for and how much change there is. And on this, you literally write the object, and you will return with $4 change. Fold it and fold it again. You say, right, what is it you've bought? They show you what they've bought. They show you how much change they've got. You now reach, you say, take that and have a look. I'm not going to touch it. Look at exactly what it is that we went for. They're going to open it and it's going to say this and this. You get your reaction. Now, what you do is you shoot what they call a pickup shot. A pickup shot is you now take the lanyard off them and you get the director to say, can we get another shot of that? But can we have Dwayne take it off this time instead? So now you hand the lanyard back around their neck, but it's a real lanyard this time. You load the real billet inside there, and you say, right, we're just going to go from the point where you were taking it off. So you've had that lanyard around your neck the entire time, correct? Can you just remove it for me? And then they remove it, and now it jumps to a shot of them opening it up and looking inside it. And now you clip out the bit where you open it, and you've got an incredible piece for TV, right? So that's using a pickup shot where the spectator is genuinely reacting. And if you interviewed that spectator afterwards, they'd say, it were around my neck the entire time. I could have picked any object. I could have bartered and brought back any amount of change. He never touched it. Like, you've got to push a little bit. I don't want to touch that. He even said to me he didn't want to touch it. And they open it and there it is, right? So you can perform incredible TV pieces with this, but you just got to find a way to naturally bring this into the scenario or the environment. It makes sense if you're carrying it and if people are coming into your space. If you're taking it into theirs, I don't think it looks too weird if you're hanging it around the neck and you're saying this is just to hold this as a prediction. But yeah,